I swear by the next time that I do this next week that I will have an actual intro for this, because I don't right now. I don't have an actual intro. Welcome back to Star Wars in the Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli, your host. We're coming at you live right after 75. That's how time works. 75 minutes after the release of episode 3 of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Very interesting as an astrogation problem. Side note, first off the bat, a couple of things before we begin this episode. First, I'm going to send, I put the StreamYard link down in the chat. This is a call-in show, so please, if you want to call in and you're a friend of the show, please call in. I'm hoping to have a great conversation with many people about Skeleton Crew tonight. I love these long titles. I actually really like these long titles. You know, of course, with the Mandalorian, the joke was always the blank, the prisoner. I think was every episode in season 2, I believe, started with a the, and I think also that's true for season 3 as well. I don't remember. But I love these long titles. We already have somebody in. I'm going to bring them on in just a few minutes after I just say, I just want to briefly say, loving the show, loving the adventure of the show, loving the style the show is doing. But without further ado, actually, let's bring on our first guest, friend of the show, host of the Page Turners They Were Not podcast. And that is Mr. Brennan, Mystical Mark.
Hello, Eli.
Hey, Brennan. So glad to have you on. What a fun show.
Yes.
I gotta just say, I was thinking you would agree with me, but any initial thoughts about the episode before I have a list of things that I noticed from the episode that we can go down.
That is the coolest looking owl alien I've ever seen.
Yeah, I was like, do we have a species for that yet? I don't think we have a species for that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will within. I know. I already. The one thing I searched right after this episode, one of the first things I did Google is just the name in Google, and Kim does have a Funko Pop. So,
oh, nice.
Which you can, I think, buy now actually, which is crazy. For a character who I don't think is going to appear again in the show, but I think she was a nice she was exactly the kind of quirky little character that I was hoping for in this show.
Yes.
Played by, I believe, her name is Aaliyah Shawkett. I think that's who played her. I'm not 100% sure about that. Her name appeared in the credits, and I think it makes sense. Like, of all the people it listed in the credits, I think it made sense. I want to know if you caught the craziest Easter egg of a casting choice. I always check the credits afterwards because that's how I knew. That's how I found out that Sarean we saw in The Acolyte was Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah.
The crew member who intercepted Jod.
Oh yes, yes.
I forget his name. The guy who played what was I going to say? The guy who played the former crewmate of Jod's, who will get into Jod's whole history and stuff.
The issue tip guy, yeah.
Yeah, the issue tip guy once in another world held the power of the sun in the palm of his hand. Yes, Alfred Molina.
Oh my goodness!
Voiced the issue tip guy.
You know, I thought his voice sounded familiar.
That's because it's Dr. Octopus.
Yeah, it's Doc Ock.
That's because it's Dr. It's such an insane.
I'm so used to Doc Ock's American accent, even though Alfred Molina is British. It's interesting.
No,
okay,
I think
so that's who it is. All right.
Yep, Alfred Molina.
Wow.
which I saw somebody point out online. Makes sense because Watts knew him from No Way Home, obviously, and could reach out. And so I think Alfred Molina as a bit role is great. Like it brings me back to the old days of The Mandalorian, where like we could get like Natalia Tena, who played Tonks in the Harry Potter series.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
As Shion, as the bit role.
Yes,
Ismael
that was
Cruz
great.
Cordova. I'm trying to think of other just
even
bit roles.
even Mark Lewis Jones in The Last Jedi as Captain Kennedy. And just that little role.
The biggest one for me is I was just like going through my mind of other ones. The biggest one for me is obviously Danny Trejo as the Rancor Keeper in the Book of Boba Fett. Yes. He comes in, says a few lines. Is Danny Trejo if he was a Rancor Keeper?
Yes.
And then
Danny Trejo were in Star Wars.
Yeah, Woodsy asks, is she? I assume she meaning Kim a canonized Shiralian? Let me look at this Shiralian on Wikipedia.
Interesting.
They do look like owls.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have to guess, just considering what this show thinks about putting established species in its in the show. I'd have to guess no. Just a little Neil jab in there. But no, I'm just kidding. But it's possible. It's definitely possible. I did not know there was a Star Wars species of owl, but I mean, other than the clown wars, which is different.
Go figure, there had to be some kind of owl-looking thing.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not surprised. I just didn't realize that. I really like that already. We're getting some establishing stuff. Still keeping the mystery going, but we're getting some established stuff already figured out in this show. So if episodes 1 and 2 were trying to hide the fact that Jod was Captain Silvo, they were doing it very badly.
I think it was meant to be.
Yeah, which makes me, of course, believe that that they weren't trying to hide it, and that reveal is like totally something that like they wanted us to figure out early. So Jod is Captain Silvo, or is Jod Crimson Jack?
Yes.
Crimson Jack. I forgot to say, obviously, for the stream, and I'm so sorry if I spoiled the episode for any spoilers. This stream is going to be involved in major spoilers for the episode.
That raises an interesting question, though. Captain Silva, is that another name for him as Crimson Jack? Or maybe we're talking, and this is an insane idea, but maybe we're talking twins. Have we ever considered that? That Silva and Jod are like siblings and not the same person. What do you think?
I think it'd be a little bit too like, I see where you're going with that, but like we just did the last show, we just did the twins thing.
Yeah.
And so for them to be doing that in 2 shows in 1 year, I feel like somebody would have, and let's just remember also, because originally this was going to be premiering last year, so still it would have been a tight radius between this and the Acolyte.
That's true.
Like, I don't think they're going to be doing that again.
No,
I think it's a fun idea.
I
wonder
if it's just he has many names.
No, I think that's what it is. I think he has many names. That's the most interesting thing for me is right now, which is, what is this guy's real name?
Yeah.
Because at some point at a point not long before the show, he went by Silvo. He introduced himself to the kids as Jod Nanawood. The Force Center crew were pronouncing it, and I was pronouncing it too because mostly it was fun. We were pronouncing it Jod Nanawood. It's Jod Nanawood, which I'm glad we got clarification from, even if it makes his name slightly less fun to say. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I was doing some research on Crimson Jack before this episode, and I found out that the comics that he was a part of, the Halcyon Legacy comics, are written by very noted Star Wars comic author by this time, Ethan Sachs. And then I noticed I was scrolling around on Blue Sky, and Ethan Sachs clearly watched the episode tonight. Because he posted on Blue Sky, did you catch the name of Jude Law's character in #Skeleton Crew? So there's a possibility, my instant headcanoning, retconning of it all is that maybe the guy who would become Crimson Jack in the sequel era heard the legends, the stories about the first Crimson Jack, or Jod.
Oh, like a Dread Pirate Roberts thing.
Sort of, yeah, sort of like that, taking up the name like a moniker, like a Captain America, like they were gonna do with Obi-Wan, as we found out. There was that recent interview. Did you see this? There was a recent interview that there was an early draft of The Force Awakens. No, not The Force Awakens, The Phantom Menace, where the idea that George had was that Obi-Wan's master at the beginning of the film would carry the name Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that upon his death to Darth Maul, that title, that name, which would be more revealed as a title, would be handed down to who we know as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, interesting.
And it made it farther, and from what I remember from the article, it made it further in development than we might have guessed. Obviously, it didn't happen, and I don't think there's any I don't think they're planning to do anything with that specifically anytime soon. But it's just a fun little detail. Yeah, no, there's some really interesting stuff with this in the episode, and a good job, by the way, with the issue tip, which I totally was blanking out on. I remember in watching the episode being like, I know that species, I can't place it, and then Jod went, "There's a nice tib." I'm like, okay, got it, right? Yeah, that's where I know that. Yeah, got it.
And the name Crimson Jack goes all the way back to the earliest Star Wars comics.
Yeah, it does.
Which came out not long after the movie. So
yeah, what he's bringing up here, he might be the Legends version from the OG Marvel comics from the 70s.
Yeah.
I went back, this was about a year ago. I've read the first 30, 40 issues of that comic because I was just so curious, just because it's history, you know. I'm pretty sure Crimson Jack appears in the first ever piece of what would be known as the Star Wars Expanded Universe, which is something I geek out about. Because the first 6 issues...
7.
That's correct, yeah. Because issues number 1 through 6 was just a straight adaptation of A New Hope.
Yeah,
Star Wars 1977, issue 7. This thing just utterly... These comics, and I need to get back to reading them because they genuinely fascinate me. Because it is Star Wars before Star Wars had any rules.
Yeah.
You just had what George established in A New Hope, and then maybe if you're lucky he might tell you, oh, you can't do that, you can't do this, but probably not, because he was still working on Empire. This was published October 11th of 1977.
Yeah. And
4 months after the film.
Yeah.
I forgot Jackson was introduced in this specific one.
Yeah.
Is Crimson Jack? I feel like Crimson Jack is introduced in this one.
Yeah.
In this issue, which is a great catch, and I thought that was a really nice. Obviously, there's a lot of vintage Lucasfilm references in this, like with the stuff from Captain EO, with the Crimson Jack reference, with there was some other stuff, the holiday special reference in episode 1.
Yes.
They're Watts and Ford, as well as whoever else want to add these in, are clearly big fans of Lucasfilm from like 1977 to like the Lucasfilm of the 20th century specifically.
Yeah.
And that's really fascinating to see how they'll integrate it into various purposes. I got 2 of the things on my list we've talked about already. The third thing that I want to address is that cold open, which I did not expect to start with the parents, but I do think it's nice just keeping that short a little bit so we can go to focus on the kids for the rest of the episode. What do you think, if anything, because I'm still trying to figure out my thoughts about this, what do you think is going on with this supervisor?
I wonder about this, whether this person is.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of shady.
Yeah.
I think that the episode gives us an idea, or at least I like the kids' theory, that the money that they have on Manhattan is the reason why the Old Republic doesn't want, or apparently didn't want, anyone to know about it.
Yeah, I think there was some theory about like that I saw online the last week, even before we knew what we knew, which was that that it had been some sort of a bank, like a vault, like Fort Knox or something like that.
Yeah,
and I remember at the time thinking, well, I don't know, there's not enough evidence. It seems to be going that way. It seems to be that there's just a huge vault of money somewhere.
Yeah, and they deliberately built it on a planet that no one could find.
Yeah, and maybe and possibly took measures to make it so people could find it even less. Because I'm not convinced, like, well, I do think that there's probably, and we got confirmed about a nebula with the barrier this week. I'm not 100% certain that the barrier is 100% natural. I think some of it might have been made by the people of that island.
Yeah, no, I agree there.
Yeah, what's he call it? The seeds of rebellion have been planted in the parents. Yeah, no, and what's interesting to me is that Wendell doesn't say a darn thing in that whole scene when we see when we see him see in episode 2, no, or at the end of episode 1, those kids take off. So he knows what happened, and he knew that they were probably outside the barrier by now. I don't understand why he didn't say anything to those parents, why he waited for them to, while he waited for them for the security droids to tell them. But it's just, yeah.
It could, I think, he's mulling it over in the sense of I just saw something insane.
Yeah.
And also the idea that because he's a career guy, maybe he's thinking to himself, I might have doubts about what I've been doing for years.
Yeah, no, that there is I agree with that. I think there is something again, like Woodsy said, there's something going on with Wendell specifically where he's trying to put these pieces together because he has a lot more of them than any other parents do, except for maybe Farrah, and we don't really know what Farrah knows anyway. So
yeah, Farrah's interesting. We'll see with her.
Yeah, I'm really interested. Like that, she's honestly the parent I'm most interested in. Probably one of the characters I'm most interested in at this point because she is in the highest position of authority that we know of on this planet, and yet she seems to know nothing.
Is she going to end up doubting too?
yeah, I'm very interested in where all that's going and what system exactly is going on
Mhm.
this planet that's so that's kept them so apart. I really did think it wasn't like an old Republic thing. I thought this was like maybe like, oh, maybe this was like 20 or so years before the films or something like that.
Yeah,
But then we got the later reveal from Kim with the jewels of the old Republic.
yeah.
And specifically with the idea that they thought Alderaan still existed.
Oh, yeah, the kids thought Alderaan was still around, yeah.
Yeah, and also they had no idea about a war, which
Yeah,
cool. They didn't know about the Galactic Civil War. That's not a surprise to me.
yeah,
But this also means that they almost certainly didn't know about the Clone War. So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
this planet's history is seriously backlogged. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm really interested to know exactly how backlogged.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree too, yeah.
yeah, like I think
I
it
agree
has
with
to
you,
be
I
at
wanna
least High
find out.
Republic,
Yeah,
by this point.
at least that. Hmm, yeah,
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna say, yeah. So
okay.
that was fantastic. What was I gonna say? Yeah. Here we go. I want to go to the next topic about this, which is I want to talk because this episode really felt like our biggest and greatest interesting. Sorry, I just saw this from Wizzy. This may be too dark, but I feel like the supervisor is some super old
Mm.
guy hooked up like Echo in Clone Wars season 7.
Oh,
I think that might be it. We don't
I
know.
like
We don't
that.
know, like, you know,
Or
just
it's a machine.
yeah, or it's a machine itself. That's kind of I don't think that's my theory as of now, but I've been wondering about that for a while, which is like is this planet like the highest authorities we've seen are the security droids? Is this planet just run by them? Uh,
Yeah.
and are they doing a just that good of a job covering it up?
Mhm.
That's fascinating. But I feel like this episode, back to what I was going to say, this episode, uh, to me, is the episode that introduces us fully to Jod Nanawood
Yeah.
or Silvo or Crimson Jack or whatever you want to call him. Uh, I was very interested because I had recently watched Captain Marvel, and I wasn't a huge fan of Jude Law's character in that film
Yeah.
specifically,
Yeah.
even though I like the film overall quite a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think he fits in perfectly with
Yes,
with this
he
cast.
fits in very well.
I think that you can see, you know, the kids talked about in various press junkets interviews how much of a mentor Jude was to them and all that kind of stuff. And what I love about this show is you can see that simultaneously going on. Like if you look, you can see like the kids and Jude Law are having the times of their freaking lives, while also I love how much the kids portrayed the fact, and I'm along with them for this.
Yeah.
I don't trust this guy.
Yeah.
I do not trust this man.
Mhm.
And
And now we know why. So,
well, now we have some ideas
some
as to
idea.
why.
Yes.
Kim certainly doesn't seem to like Crimson Jack, which from whatever uh, Jod was doing back when he was known as Crimson Jack, that's not good.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, you have some. Are you gonna say something about Jod?
Well, I think now we know that at least what he told the issue kid is that he thinks he's found a way to get the biggest score ever, I guess.
Yeah,
So, be interesting to see what he's up to.
I think it's just at Atten. I think the big score is at
He
Atten.
wants it at, and yeah.
Just because that's what he asks
It's
SM33
it's
about.
a Long John Silver kind of thing.
Yeah, I think
He
that
wants
I think
Treasure
he's
Island.
yeah, I think he just wants to get there and plunder the hell out of it. But like there's it's just interesting, especially because as we know with our like wide exposition we got with episode 1,
Yeah.
to the kids and to most people who live on that planet, there is nothing remarkable about it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the criticism that this show got before it came out of like the suburban Star Wars, but it's not suburban. It's a treasure planet,
Yes.
supposedly. I just thought of something really funny in my mind, and I'm like, what if they get to Ad-Atten, and 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 of course we'll find out what's happening on Ad-Atten and why it's such a lockdown state and why people can't go past the barriers and stuff like that. But like, what if there is another planet called Ad-Atten that's hidden to the galaxy that is not this Ad-Atten?
Oh, interesting.
What if there's a dupe on the planet? That's not going to happen. I'm going to establish right now that is 100% not going to happen.
Yeah, well.
But what if it did?
That would be something, yes.
That would be very funny.
I enjoyed this episode very much. I'm gonna take off or need to.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for
I wanted
on.
to come in and share my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
This
Brennan,
show is so much fun.
It is. It's so much fun.
It's, as the kids say, wholesome.
It is wholesome. It is very wholesome.
It is just a very fun, adventurous, and I had a big smile on my face this whole episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Brennan, before you go, you want to tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, you can find me. Actually, I'll be talking about Skeleton Crew tomorrow on my podcast at Page Turners They Were Not. You can find it on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on, Brennan. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Eli. Right. Good night.
All right. So I guess I'm just handling the show from here. Brennan and I touched on a lot of points that I'd taken notes out of is what I was trying to say. But yeah, let's get into these main characters. So obviously we do have these kids developing relationships with John and Alwood. They're not sure if they should fully trust him. I mean, Wim seems to trust him a little too much, but that's of course Wim buying into the whole Jedi thing that he wants to believe. And that's the other thing, is that what a Jedi is in this era of Star Wars and what a Jedi is in the era of Star Wars that Ad-Atten is trapped in are probably very different things. Like, if they know Jedi as mythological figures and all that kind of stuff, Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained translated some of the Orabesh from Wim's storybook about the Jedi, and none of those names seem familiar to me. But I'm starting to wonder, because obviously, like, if the kids were shown names like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, or I'm trying to think of another one, Kelleran Beck, something like even famous names like those in the Clone Wars, they probably wouldn't recognize it because they're not up to date with galactic history from the Clone Wars. But now I'm starting to wonder, okay, will they recognize Avar Kriss? Will they recognize Porter Engle? Will they recognize Elzar Mann, the heroes of the High Republic? Or is that even too late for them? And obviously the Old Republic is an era that has been largely unexplored in the Star Wars canon. The furthest we've really gone back is the High Republic. The Old Republic, I understand there's a lot of protective feelings about that era due to what Legends did with it, due to the absolute shit ton that Legends did with it, with the 2 KOTOR games and SWTOR, which is still ongoing, which I've heard is a possible reason that Lucasfilm doesn't want to touch it right now, because SWTOR, they've decided, is still going. I think this I forget who I think maybe it was Alex Damon who I heard talking about like the idea that because SWTOR is still producing content regularly, and Lucasfilm still allows them to do that, that they don't want to get confused and like, oh, is this Old Republic part of our Old Republic thing with canon? No, 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 no. So I'm interested to see how both A, how long SWTOR keeps going on, and B, how long, and B, if when SWTOR eventually stops producing stuff, where there's not a production team on SWTOR anymore, when they decide to cancel service for that game, how long will it take for Lucasfilm to get back on the Old Republic train? That's going to be very interesting to me. And I do love, I will say, that they are allowing Watts and Ford to tackle this stuff. Like that Lucasfilm clearly hasn't done a ton about since the since the Disney purchase. And they're allowing them to open up their possible. It's like what they allowed Tony Gilroy to do. Wait, Mon Mothma has a husband and kids. That Mon Mothma was already a pretty darn established character, but there was a thing with introducing Perrin and Lita where it's like, well, yeah, we don't really know what she was doing in that time, and there's no reason she couldn't have had a husband and a daughter. So I guess she has a husband and a daughter now. Or that's an example I'm thinking of, like, Alden. There have been some monumental things that have been written into these live action shows, which there are some things that, like, I'm not saying that I didn't expect them to be allowed to take these big swings, because they've taken some big swings, but I feel like that's really more in storytelling rather than the expansion of the specific lore itself. I guess I just wasn't like, other than Leslie Headland and Dave, I wasn't expecting other shows to have such deep cut references innately in them, and have such game-changing factors innately in them. And who knows how much the story group helped on that. I'm endlessly fascinated in the upkeep of the Star Wars canon and how that goes and how they're rectifying things. That we had that whole thing with the Star Wars encyclopedia that I just packed up, or else I would take it out. It calls the Inquisitor that confronted Ahsoka on not Rada. It's the discount Rada in Resolve, the sixth short of Tales of the Jedi. It calls in the book the first brother, but then we find out that can't be, because of Merrick, the Inquisitor, who is most likely resurrected by Night Sister magic and brought back in Ahsoka, and also seen in Tales of the Empire. That was the first brother. And we got an update from, I think it was Leland Chi, or I forget exactly when this was. Maybe this was StarWars.com, I forget. But either way, the Birdman Inquisitor that Ahsoka fought, voiced by Clancy Brown in Resolve, was actually the 11th brother, which I'm glad we got that out of the way. Stuff like that with the upkeep of, like, okay, we have to keep track of, oh, this person fought this person then, and this person have never met. And like stuff like this was in Padawan, Kirsten White's novel a few years ago, where Obi-Wan hears Dooku talking, sees him from a distance, but of course they cannot meet until episode 2, because of the line, "It's a pity our paths have never crossed, Obi-Wan." stuff like that. Obviously, if you're going to stuff like that with canon, you can obviously turn to the Grievous of it all with Anakin, where they could not meet face to face during the Clone Wars because of their remarks to each other in Revenge of the Sith that led Dave to do some pretty goofy things, like Shadow Warrior, when he had the two of them dragged beside each other, unconscious, yet still not meeting. Beautiful. Beautiful. Love that stuff. Deeply enjoy that stuff. But anyway, back to Skeleton Crew. Yeah. Brandon and I already talked quite a bit about Kim, voiced by Alia Shawkat. I think that's how you pronounce her name. If not, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, she was exactly the type of whimsical character. There was 1 second before before it was revealed that she goes by the pronouns she, her, that that like that when John said I know someone, I'm like, oh, is this it? Are we getting Hondo this early? And look, I usually don't get too zealous about predicting what characters we could or might get, because I prefer to let Star Wars surprise me, because frankly, until they happen, it doesn't feel real. Like I knew Ahsoka was probably going to end up in season 2 of The Mandalorian alongside Bo-Katan, but it didn't feel real to me until I actually saw Katie Sackhoff and Rosario Dawson. Same thing. I think the same thing will be true now with Jeremy Allen White, where, yeah, we got the thing yesterday. Oh, cool, he's Rada the Hutt. Yay. That's not going to feel real to me until I'm in a theater, seeing The Mandalorian and Grogu, and hearing Jeremy Allen White's voice come out in whatever language I don't know, of a now grown up ish sort of Rada the Hutt. Rada will be like early 30s, and we don't know how long Hutts live. I'm trying to think. Yeah, because Jabba was killed at 600. But we, species age differently, as IG-11 points out to us. I'm just going off on so many tangents right now, but either way, the point is, the point is, here's what it was. Yeah, Kim was fun. Oh yeah, I was talking about Hondo. I want to see Hondo in the show. I really do. I want to see Hondo Ohnaka in the show. I want to hear Jim Cummings' voice. And I want it to be an absolute clusterfuck of an episode. I really do. Like it. I think it's. Woodsy, this is my exact reaction to this. Was my exact reaction yesterday. It's so stupid, and yet I love it. Like it is. You asked me to name 50 pre-existing characters, 100 pre-existing Star Wars characters that I thought could appear in The Mandalorian Grogu. Like, we got that one random Imperial warlord today confirmed from the spies, from the cold open of the spies. That doesn't surprise me in a million years. Yeah, I could have guessed that maybe they'd be facing some of the other Imperial warlords as the sort of mini bosses on the way to the grand boss of Thrawn. That's not surprising to me. Rada the Hutt? Stinky. The guy we last saw in like 2011 in an episode of the Clone Wars for like 2 seconds. And then the time before that was his introduction in the Clone Wars movie, which largely has not been very acknowledged since it came out, even though I will admit I've grown fonder of it through the years, although it's still not my favorite. Jeremy Allen White is Rada the Hutt is just insane, and God, I love Dave Filoni for doing it. I kind of felt like I was asleep when I read it. I'm like, there's no way this is real. I'm dreaming. This is some weird joke. Nope. It's apparently not a joke. Yeah. I'm loving, I will say, this episode very much made me appreciate even more the value of Nick Frost as SM33. I think him as a good as a mainstay for the series and a comic anchor, as somebody who has a wildly different view of the galaxy, in that he has any view of the galaxy, than the kids do, is great. The thing, like, I'm not going to be repeating this, but I think AT-AT might be real. He goes into the bag and he comes back out and he goes, fantastic. Love that little beat. There are so many just like line deliveries and like ways that like we got the moment from the trailer that I remember people freaked out about, including myself, because it's such a great comedy moment in this episode of okay, I'm gonna go around the back. Neil, take the controls and fly. Neil, you're having Neil fly? And just the absolute bonkers energy of, okay, kids, you got yourself into this adventure. And of course, with the help of SM33 and Jod Nanawood and slash Silvo slash Crimson Jack, maybe? But other than those two, it's gonna be really it's gonna really be your responsibility to get yourselves back to AT-AT, which they have no idea how to get to. I hope that data chip helps them. That's the other thing is I was very interested, and of course they're keeping it coy, obviously, so that they can have that reveal. And potentially the next episode, potentially after that, we don't know. I'll just say that establishing the vibe of this episode with with David Lowery. I think David Lowery with very interesting as an astrogation problem, and the second episode, which is called way out past the barrier. I was like trying to search for it in my head. I think the double tap of him doing the second and third episodes, much like I was thinking like Steph Green did the second and third episodes of Ahsoka. You have the creator of the series, like I'm thinking of Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew, very similar to like here. You have the creator of the series, John Watts for Skeleton Crew and Dave Filoni for Ahsoka, direct the first one, but then to really establish the tone of how the show's going to feel, you have this incredibly talented director, Steph Green, and David Lowery go in and let's just take a step back. We got the bombastic introduction. Let's now develop this into a television show, what that's going to look like. And I think I think that works well. I think it worked well in Ahsoka, and I think it worked well. I think it works even better, honestly, here, because Ahsoka is very good for the first 4 episodes. In my opinion, is very good for the first 4 episodes. And then for episode 5 on, just becomes insane. Which averages out to great at the end of the day. But yeah, let's see. What else do I have? Yeah. Obviously, we have the Jewels of the Old Republic, which I'm very interested to learn exactly what that means and why all the other ones were destroyed. That was another detail we got in this, that all of the other Jewels of the Old Republic were destroyed. That's weird. That's strange. That doesn't make sense. We talked about, I'm just looking on my list, we talked about Alfred Molina. We talked about that. We talked about, let's see. Let's talk about KB. KB. I remember one of the things I heard last episode from some people is that, it seems like KB is the least developed of the 4. And I agree with that, but I thought, with 6 episodes left, hope KB gets more gets more characterization, and she did. And there was that moment, like, she had that like, according to my calculations moment that like often Tech had in the Bad Batch, or Zat had in the Gathering arc, in the Stranded Younglings arc. But I'm glad that her arc clearly isn't going to be like they could have easily made her arc the one like Zat, which is like, you got to stop learning to rely on technology and rely on your own skills a little bit more. And we did that with Zat, and that was okay, because it was like, it was about these young Jedi and them learning stuff as they grew into their teen years and all that kind of stuff. I don't know why. I think maybe because it's live action, maybe because this is pushing a little bit more into the development of the Grogu Saga, as I call it. But like, I didn't want that again for KB, and I'm glad that that's not seemingly where they're going. But where they're going seems to be that KB, although she's not one necessarily for a leadership position, she's extremely perceptive. She seems to be very aware and take a lot of notice of what's going on around her, and she asks really great questions. She makes good observations, and yeah, I'm interested to see exactly what what her relationship with the headset she has is, and why she's using that. Like, some more backstory on that would be interesting. I'm trying to think what I was just thinking about something. Oh yeah, the I thought the moment with her and Jod on the ship was really, really interesting. Where she really tries to suss out who Jod is. And Jod doesn't seem to want to give an answer. That's the whole vibe I get. The episode is Jod is doing everything he possibly can not to reveal who he actually is. And I think I might have cracked it. Folks, I'd encourage you highly to watch Ionized Bastards, a Star Wars role-playing series that I will put a comment with in the live chat. I will put I'll say this: go to the All Remaining Systems YouTube channel. Some good friends of mine run that RPG show. It's fantastic. They've had 2 seasons out so far. They're working on the 3rd right now. And with that, I'm going to spoil a major plot twist of season 1 of Ionized Bastards in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so in, I believe, the 5th episode of season 1, it is revealed that the character played by my friend Jared the Dark Jedi, his character Faven Martell, who wields a crimson red lightsaber and clearly is force sensitive, was not just a former Jedi. He was also a former member of the Inquisitorius. And I'm starting to wonder if Jod was too. I'm starting to wonder if Jod Nanawood is going to be the canon version of Faven Martell. I'm starting to wonder if the reason why Jod doesn't want to talk that much to these kids about his past is because he wasn't an agent of the light last. I mean, being an Inquisitor means you were a former Jedi at some point, but last he professionally used the Force, he was not an agent of the light. He was an agent of the dark. And especially because Dave Filoni said in the little commentary he's given onto the show, because he is still an executive producer, but obviously he wants to leave a lot of people saying things about the show, like people describing the show and was supposed to be about to John Watts as the showrunner. But one of the things he did say is he worked with John to create a quote-unquote different kind of Jedi, which I think is really interesting. And I wonder if he means, well, we've never really had an Inquisitor turn to the light side and explore the implications. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Implications of what that means. And before all of you go and angrily, Blue Sky, I'm not going to say that word because Blue Sky post at me saying, well, what about Reva? Reva did turn to the light side at the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but she hasn't really, or at least she rejected the dark. We haven't gone to explore with her the implications of who she's going to be now that she's not an Inquisitor. Now that she realized that her goal of revenge was, to say the least, foolhardy in a certain sense, because she was never going to really achieve justice by becoming a part of the system that destroyed everything she knew and loved. And absolutely, I want to see Reva's story continued. It is the part of the Obi-Wan Kenobi's series, honestly, that I think should be continued, that I think needs to be continued on the most. If I could have any part of that series continued, I think it would be Reva and her journey. But anyway, speaking of Jod, and I think there were some other. There was also Barriss. Again, we don't know the implications of who Barriss really became, and to a certain extent, Lynn from Tales of the Empire, which I have fresh because we just did it. We just did Tales of the Empire on In a Galaxy. But yeah, there hasn't been a real true exploration except for an Ionized Bastards, but I'm sure Dave Filoni doesn't count that for understandable reasons, of what an Inquisitor, not a Sith Lord, capital S, like Vader, or lowercase s, like Kylo Ren, to put it lightly, not like somebody who has specifically devoted themselves to the dark side in all forms and been the apprentice to a Sith master. No, somebody who did the dark side outside of the Sith system, but was still immersed in the dark side. Again, like a Reva or like a Barriss, who, again, we got the beginnings of them turning away. But of course, if Jod turned away from the dark, either after the Empire's destruction or before it happened or whatever it may be, that was clearly a long time ago. And so he's obviously had some time to develop into Captain Silvo or Crimson Jack or Jod Nanawood or any of the characters who he's developed himself to be. So I'm just really interested to see exactly if they go down that option, how they're going to handle it. And if they don't go down that option, what's going on? I've heard, there was a theory I heard of Jod being like somebody who parted ways with the Jedi, wasn't chosen by a Jedi Master as a youngling, or by that same logic extended, didn't pass the trials as a Padawan. And I think those are both also interesting places to go. That would probably be my second option behind pulling a Fabian Martell and making him an Inquisitor. Because at least with the youngling and Padawan thing, you can have the complicated relationship with the Jedi, even if the complicated relationship wouldn't be as complicated as it would be if this guy actively helped to betray and murder countless Jedi Knights who had survived the execution of Order 66. I'm going to be wrapping it up in a few minutes right here, so if anybody else wants to come in, express their thoughts about Skeleton Crew, this is basically your last warning. I'm going to pull up, I should have done this earlier on, but the StreamYard link is in the chat. What I was gonna say is I should have pinned this comment. There we go, pinning that comment. That comment is pinned now. That's great. That's great. Me learning live stream stuff. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this live stream. Thanks so much to Brett and Mar for joining me. You can I'm Eli. You can find all of In a Galaxy's stuff on all the podcast networks. If we're not on a specific network, please email us swinagalaxy@gmail.com to so we can add that network. But I think we're on most of the major ones. You can follow me. We can follow In a Galaxy everywhere at In a Galaxy Pod. We're mainly on Blue Sky now. We've completely abandoned Twitter, and we do occasional posts on Threads, but I don't check Threads very often. So if you want to find us, your best bet is Blue Sky. I've been very much enjoying it on Blue Sky. I think the community there has grown positive for the time being, so I'm hopeful about how Blue Sky is going to develop. Yeah, you can find me everywhere. My link tree is linktr.ee/_OGFan327, where you can find all my stuff. We are, I just received word today. Unfortunately, it seems like the next Epic Confrontations match on Star Wars in a Galaxy's YouTube channel right here is going to be delayed. I think it's going to happen in January and not December, which I'm disappointed about, but I totally understand. We're having some scheduling issues. And no, I totally get it. But we're gonna have that out for all of you. The Coaxium Run, which is an event I'm very excited about in January. Let's see. I was gonna say, oh yeah, In a Galaxy. Let's talk about In a Galaxy. In a Galaxy this week is starting season 20. Which Jacob and I have alluded to in the past. We've recorded the first 2 episodes. The first one will be coming out on Friday, covering Casa, the first episode of Star Wars, or of Andor, a Star Wars story, as I keep needing to remind myself to call it, because that the announcement that it got its name changed after the first season was just such a weird, like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Andor, a Star Wars story, season 1. We're doing 1 episode an episode, which we usually don't do on In a Galaxy, but yeah, Jacob and I have recorded the first 2 episodes. They'll be coming out Friday the 13th. Hope no one gets too bad luck on that day, but Friday the 13th and Friday the 20th, and we will be recording others soon. I'm trying to think about any other plugs I have. No, we'll be back next week, discussing the 4th episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. We know it is directed by the excellent Daniels of the film Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's what they're most known for, which I saw, I think this was about like 7-8 months ago for the first time, and God, that film is so good. I know I'm not the first, nor the 10th, nor the millionth person to say this, but Everything Everywhere is fantastic. And I'm thrilled to have the Daniels on board a Star Wars thing. That this is going to be so interesting. Their style is so unique, and I'm very excited, as well as other directorial visions. We have Jake Schreier, episode 5, Lee Isaac Chung, episode 7, I think. I think Bryce is 6 and Lee Isaac Chung is 7. Bryce Dallas Howard in 6. Either way, I'm very excited for all these directors, but the Daniels is the one that definitely the directors that were announced for this series that definitely made my eyebrows perk up the most. And so I think we also heard that Daniel's episode is going to be a more Neil focused episode, which everybody loves Neil, so like I have no problem with that. Yeah, I think that's gonna be it. I think if there's nothing else, all there's left to say is may the force be with you. Always.